Hello and welcome to Oddspedia Serie A Matchday for Danny. The international break is over with good news for Italy, and now we are focused in the Derby della Madonnina. Hello, Daniele Fisichella.
Ciao Edu, it's been a good week after all for Italian football. Disappointing draw against Macedonia, but they did really well against Ukraine at San Siro. They showed hunger, desire, a very good start of the game, scored two, could have scored more. 2 goals from Frattesi. I wonder if Simone Inzaghi can lift him out of the derby, but there is also Juve Lazio. Napoli needs to bounce back, goes to Genoa. This is an important match day because it comes right before the return of the European competition. So really now the tough gets going. You know, the things gonna get really tough.
There are always a lot of surprises in this kind of match days. I mentioned it in our video about the Bundesliga right after the international break and right before the European competition. So let's not waste any time. Remember, guys, to comment the video, of course, press the like and subscribe. And now let's go on with the show. We are very close to the 20K subscribers, so remember to subscribe. And if you want also, you can register with 1xBet. We have an exclusive offer with them up to 130% in your welcome bonus. So use our promo code, and the link is in the description. Danny, we have a great Saturday because we have a Champions League next week, starting with Juve Lazio, and not because Juve have to play in the Champions League, but Lazio, and this is a tricky one. The first one, my eyes go on the Juve to win, to be honest. Around 2.0 is not bad, but now I'm unsure because Lazio got the 3 points at the Maradona again, and Juve, they dropped points in the only game they played at home this season against Bologna.
They won comfortably against Empoli, Juventus, and against Udinese away from home. Now we know that when they play away from home against a struggling side, small side, they're very clinical. They won the last 11 games away from home without conceding. And actually at Empoli, at the Castellani, they didn't even concede a shot on target. They were really good, but now it's going to be different because Juventus is going to face a stronger side and a side with a very good midfield with Lazio. There's got plenty of options. We're going to talk a bit in a moment. And they might suffer like against Bologna. Now, the midfield trio Juventus is going to be Fagioli, Locatelli, Rabiot. Sometimes it looked very static, not very imaginative, but the international break gives back to Juve a Manuel Locatelli. He played a very good game for Italy in the position of regista in a midfield three. So is he a question of confidence? Is he a question of the players that he goes around him? We will see. Obviously, Juventus have been shocked by the news of Pogba being positive to anti-doping test. He's going to miss at least 5 or 6 months of the season, perhaps even more. There is also the doubt of Federico Chiesa, whether he's going to be fit to play, hasn't played with the national team. If he plays up front with Vlahovic, Juventus can look obviously more unpredictable as long as Chiesa and Vlahovic can form a good partnership, because sometimes they look like they're playing on their own. But yes, of course, without Chiesa, it will be harder, I guess. Juve needs to do better at home. So far, they're only 8 for shots. Last season, at home, they average less than a goal per game. And this is going to be a tough nut to crack. Lazio, tactically, perfect again against Napoli, like 6 months before. They knew when they had to suffer in the first 30 minutes. Napoli went at them. Provedel made a very good save. Romagnoli and Casale had to do a few last-ditch tackles, but then they were very good in possession, knew how to punch. The goal from Luis Alberto, it's magnificent with his back heel. I don't understand why some people criticize him. And now, after 2 weeks of work of Sarri, with the likes of Luis Alberto, who didn't go with the national team, of course, Rovella, Guendouzi, I think this is going to help them, having work a little bit more with Sarri. And by the way, Matteo Guendouzi, when he came onto the pitch, had a goal disallowed and an assist disallowed against Napoli in 25 minutes. So I think his contribution is going to be really, really important. Last year, Lazio won 2-1 at the Olimpico against Juventus, and they trashed Juve. The result is not a true reflection of how much they play, but then they lost in Turin 3-0. So sometimes, between these two sides, although I think last year there was a gulf in class in the way they played, the results can be a little bit deceptive. I think Lazio, who will play, of course, in the Champions League in midweek, will start the game well. I don't see them conceding too many goals. I'm going to go for an Asian handicap, plus 0.25 in the first half. I think it's really good. Pays 183, which basically guarantees you a win. If they draw, you win half a stake. If they win the first half, you win the full stake. The odds, as you mentioned earlier, are very, very high for this kind of game.
Indeed, Lazio to win, if you fancy it, is 4.6, really high, and even Juve to win, the one that I liked, is 1.93 right now. Really Lazio's debut in the Champions League is against Atletico de Madrid, and a special game for Cholo Simeone. Yes. And Danny, I also want to highlight Kamada, scored a great goal against Napoli, and he should be the substitute of Milinkovic-Savic, and already shining for Lazio.
Give him a little bit of time. It took the first two games probably to adapt, to understand Sarri's tactics. He's not as physical and as imposing as Milinkovic-Savic, and perhaps you don't see his work much. He does a lot of obscure works between the line. Perhaps he's more of a number 10 than a number 8. But against Napoli was really good. Anytime, anywhere the ball was, or anywhere there was a critical situation, he was there, and he finished the action of the 2-1 really, really well. He's a player we've seen in the Europa League, in the Bundesliga, with the Japanese national team. There is no doubt about his value. He just needs a little bit of time to bed into the Sarri's tactics. But I think Lazio got plenty of options there in midfield, as I mentioned, Rovella, Luis Alberto, Guendouzi. I think Kamada will play a lot of games and will play well.
Well, the Super Saturday continues in Italy with the big game, Derby della Madonnina, Inter Milan, the only two teams that have won all the games so far on top of the table, with 9 points. Of course, especially, I would say, well, in everyone's head is still the semifinals of the Champions League. Last season, the head-to-head between these two teams is really favorable for Inter. The last 4 games were won by Inter. In the last 6 games, Inter won 5, so it looks like Pioli cannot beat this Nero Azzurri. Danny, I'm talking about important names, for instance, Lautaro, top scorer of the competitions in the competition with 5 goals, but he couldn't score with Argentina, and also had a long flight from La Paz, from Bolivia. And for Milan, we have to look at first Rafael Leao, and then also Pulisic. He had landed in the Italian football in a brilliant way.
Yes, Pulisic had a brilliant debut in Italy. Let's go and crunch a little bit more numbers. The 4 wins of Inter have been all wins to nil. So they didn't concede in the last 4 derbies. And the domination, especially in the 2 legs of the Champions League, in the game in the Super Cup they play in Riyadh, was pretty much total. Inter outran Milan, started the games quickly. Milan didn't seem to be able to cope with the wide man of Inter. Let's see if this time they are more proactive and also a little bit more aggressive. Inter have won 5 of the last 6. Milan have only won 2 of the last 11 derbies. But then when you look at the title, it's 1 Scudetto apiece. So it's much more balanced than what you actually believe. But of course, Inter won a couple of Coppa Italias, a couple of Supercoppas, etc. Talking about the names and the players, Lautaro Martinez, 8 goals in the derbies. We know he's a streaky striker, scored 4 in the last 5. Against Bolivia, I think you're a little bit unfair saying he hasn't scored. Well, he didn't start the game. He was on the bench. I mean, give the guy a little bit.
Ecuador.
Yeah, against Ecuador he did score. South American football is different. But who scored in national teams was Thuram, scored for France against Ireland, and Frattesi scored a brace against Ukraine. And let's see if Inzaghi gives him a chance or still trust Mkhitaryan, who, by the way, scored in a Champions League game. For Milan, Giroud is going to be fit, picked up a small injury in the game against Ireland, but should lead the line. Leao didn't score against Luxembourg, but played really well and provided assist. And yeah, we were talking about Pulisic. You can tell that he's a player that is used to play at a higher level. He hasn't started many games for Chelsea last season, but when he's fit and for the level of Serie A, he's a crack. He's a great player. He's a player that can, with turns of pace, with shooting accuracy, with passing, and drifting from the right hand side into the middle. He's been really, really good. And so has been Loftus-Cheek, really imposing in midfield with his physique, with his runs. Milan look a very interesting proposition. They have changed. There's 80% of their attacking lineup with new additions. Of course, there is also Chukwueze, there is Okafor. Thanks to the money that they got from Tonali, it will be interesting to see how do they fare against a top side. They were much better than Roma last time they played in the Serie A and show good authority to go there and win. Inter, on the other hand, come on the back of a fantastic result against Fiorentina. What is impressive from Inter this time around is that they have they starting games really, really well. Last season, at the beginning of the season, they were a little bit ponderous. This time, they know how to attack game, how to go for it, create chances. Against Fiorentina, going to score 5 or 6. The wide man's Dumfries is in a very good form. 3 assists with the Netherlands. Di Marco as well has played well for Italy. Barella, one of the key men of the Italian midfield. Of course, we mentioned Lautaro. So we'll see, but it's gonna be a fascinating battle as well in midfield again between Reinders and Çalhanoğlu. There are so many ways you can tackle this. You can think it could be an open game. You can think it could be a draw, as often the derbies are. Look, it is difficult. I think this is one of the most difficult bets of the weekend for you. I'm gonna go for a conservative one. You'll have to excuse me. Over 1 goal in the first half, 189, which means if there is only 1 goal in the first half, you get your money back. First half 0-0, you lose. More than a goal in the first half, you win a good stake.
I like it, actually. The conservative angle in this kind of games is very difficult. Inter, they are the favorites. You can imagine why after analyzing all the data. 2.3 to win, and Milan 3.4. No goals conceded for Interjet. And remember that both teams are playing in the Champions League the following week. Inter playing against Real Sociedad, Milan at home against Newcastle. Of course, next week, okay, Danny, we will analyze all these games in our videos about the Champions League. Already looking forward to it, but we still have interesting games, especially on Saturday in the Serie A. The last game is the current champion, Napoli, traveling to Genoa. The first defeat for Rudy Garcia on the bench. I don't know if he's already facing some criticism around the Laurentiis or Napoli for that defeat against Lazio before they beat Sassuolo and Frosinone. For Genoa, Danny, the 3 points that got them the victory against Lazio, the surprising one away.
This is it for Genoa. Yes, only 3 points in the table. Look, Napoli, I think, in the first 3 weeks of the Italian Serie A, they rested a little bit on their laurels. They lived on past glory. They have a system that works under Spalletti, so they use the same formation. Rudy Garcia hasn't changed much, apart from asking the team to play slightly more direct into the feet or into the chest of Osimhen. But against Lazio, after 30 minutes, when they didn't find a goal, they look like they ran out of ideas. Some of the key players, Kvaratskhelia, Zambanghissa, they are not in top form. They struggle to create clear-cut chances in the second half, and they got caught on the break. So this is now a very important moment for Napoli, because that defeat is a little bit like the reset button. Okay, now they lost that game, they got out of the system, and Rudy Garcia needs to show what he can do to improve this team. He cannot just have it the same way as Spalletti did it. He needs to show how he's actually changing it. And let's see if he does change something from this game. I think Napoli are suffering mostly from 2 things. The first thing, of course, is the poor form of some of his players, but this can only improve. And the second thing is that they're probably, without Kim Min-jae at the back, they're losing a pacey defender who can read the game very well, who can anticipate his man very well, but also is very good on the ball. Now, the man that they bought to be his natural replacement, Nathan, the Brazilian, hasn't seen the pitch. Will we see him now? People say he's very good, but we don't really know how he plays in Italian football. And so far, they played with Juan Jesus, who he's a good marker. He's a good center back in terms he's like a stopper, but he struggles to read the game, and with the feet he's not as good as Kim Min-jae. So I think there they are lacking something. Now, Genoa, 3 points. They lost against Torino, got punished by a stoppage time goal by Radonic. But to be fair, they didn't do much to win the game. They're a bit difficult to read at the moment, Genoa, because they got good players up front. They got Retegui, Malinowski, who hasn't played with Ukraine, to train more a little bit with Gilardino, Messias, who's still injured, Gudmundsson. But despite having a lot of attacking players, so far they spend most of the time defending their own area. They are bottom for shots in Serie A, 16 shots. Napoli are top with 66. Genoa are also bottom for corners taken, only 4. Napoli have taken 25. So I think they need to show a little bit something different. They need to try and go at it. Maybe do as Lazio did. But, can they defend as well as Lazio did? I don't think they can. Napoli win for me. Pays well. I think he's around 177. But if you want to spice it up a little bit, Napoli win and over 1.5 goals, 218.
It's very good, actually. The odds for Napoli to win 1.7, as you've mentioned. Genoa, newly promoted to this Serie A. Remember that the teams from that city, they are cursed lately, both Genoa and Sampdoria, going down to Serie B. And Danny, let's move on to the less sexy games. We have to say on Sunday, we have a lot of games about the relegation or the middle of the table. First one is Cagliari Udinese. 1 point for Professor Ranieri, with Cagliari in the first match day against Torino. Udinese only 2 points, only 1 goal scored so far. So 2 teams that haven't won yet this season.
No, they haven't. They scored and conceded the same amount of goals. Cagliari Udinese scored 1, conceded 4. But Udinese had almost 20 more shots than Cagliari. Clearly, Udinese lack quality. I mean, they try, but some of the shots are from outside the box. They don't hit the target. Udinese have lost a lot this season, I think, without Beto, who went to Everton. Now Deulofeu is not available. They haven't got Udogie anymore. Yes, I mean, the replacements are not quite there. Lucca up front, we haven't seen him much. Tuaven, since he arrived in Italy, has been pretty much untouchable, really. You don't know what kind of contribution he gives. So yeah, Udinese are struggling. The best player is Lazar Samardzic. Young player, scored 1. Yeah, all relies on him. And Lovric, to be fair, who played well with Slovenia. He even scored a goal in the international fixtures. Cagliari, I think they are paying a little bit the lack of experience. They made a mistake in Bologna. They defended way too deep. Then Radunovic, the goalkeepers, didn't pick up the ball well, and Fabian scored, and they lost 2-1. Ranieri has already changed his tactics. He went on with 3 strikers in the first 2 games, especially against Inter, with Oristanio on the right hand side, and that was a massive mistake against Inter. And now he's reverting back to what he knows best: 4-4-2 with Yankto and Nandez on the wings, compact midfield. Up front, there might be the return of Lapadula. Zito Luvumbu is a pacey player that can trouble some of the most static defenses. Udinese are in crisis, by the way. Only 2 points in the last 7 Serie A games. For this reason, I think Cagliari could have a chance against a side that doesn't score a lot of goals, and the odds are very good because this one is really on the balance. I mean, it could be a pass for me, but I like to give tips. Cagliari has an handicap 0 in the first half, 204. I think it's almost a safe bet. If Cagliari scored the first goal, probably win the first half. If the first half finished 0-0, they draw, or 1-1, you get your money back.
If I was lucky enough to be in Sardinia, Danny, in this time of the year, probably I would go to the beach instead of watching this game, this Cagliari Udinese. But perhaps you want to place your bets. It's much more interesting since the Formula One already passed by Monza, going to the football in Monza, because this is a good game. Monza Lecce, they are facing a Champions League spots team like Lecce right now. They are in the 4th spot. A huge surprise. Only 3 games, but they beat Salernitana, they beat Lazio, they were able to draw against Fiorentina away, so it's the biggest surprise this Lecce, whereas Monza, Dani, I guess by the books. They beat Empoli at home, they lost away to Atalanta and Inter.
2 bad defeats away from Monza, I must say, because they kept the ball fairly well against Inter and Atalanta, but created pretty much nothing. Against Atalanta, expected goals 0.37. So yeah, no trouble really for the Atalanta defense. Lost 3-0, a few mistakes at the back, a little bit of naivety, couldn't play out from the back, got picked up. Let's see now with the new signing, Colombo, who by the way is on loan from Milan, if they do better up front. Colombo, interesting story. Last season scored 6 goals for Lecce, and his goal, the penalty, decisive in Monza, gave Lecce the salvation with 1-0 win in the 96 minutes. So what a story that would be if now he scores against Lecce. Lecce, at the moment, they are the team of Serie A, the surprise of Serie A. They are young, they are fit. Perhaps they were a touch lucky against Lazio with those 2 goals in 90 seconds. But at the moment, they are 4th for shots. So the change from Baroni to D'Aversa is an interesting one because they're playing more proactive football. I don't think they can sustain that. I'm not sure they got the quality, especially at the back, to play so attacking and to be a little bit reckless, play with 3 up front with Strefezza, Krstovic and Almquist. Let's see. But so far, 7 points. That means they need to get another 27, 26 to get saved. So they are almost there. Krstovic, 2 goals already. Almquist, Ramadani played really well with Albania in international break. Rafia, these are all players that you might want to follow during the season. I think they'll do well. Can Lecce keep a clean sheet? I don't think so. But I think they could score. Both to score here. 195.
Okay, talking about good starts, Dani, Frosinone, 4 points for a newly promoted team. Very weak, according to the roster and according to your words at the beginning of the season, but doing great. They beat Atalanta, drew with Udinese, lost to Napoli, even taking the lead. So great start for Frosinone, for Sassuolo. Now that Berardi is staying and he scored a brace against Verona, celebrating another year for Sassuolo, perhaps we should trust them more in their visit to Lazio, to Frosinone.
He's a true romantic, Berardi. I mean, 14 seasons at Sassuolo, 13 seasons at Sassuolo. Well, he wanted to move to Juventus this summer. Didn't happen. They put him outside of the team, got him back for the game against Verona, scored 2, and Sassuolo collected the first win in 9 games, obviously going back to last season. They scored 3 goals against Verona, Sassuolo, as many as they scored in the previous 4 games. So obviously, the Berardi factor is massive, not only because they got a better outlet on the right-hand side with him, but because he's a leader, he's a player with a lot of experience, and he's a player that can put the ball into the box for Pinamonti or combine with Lorientè. In the last day of the transfer market, Sassuolo gave Maxime Lopez on loan to Fiorentina, which surprised me a little bit because Maxime Lopez is one of the best midfielders. So let's see how they do without the French midfielder. Frosinone, on the other hand, deserved the point against Udinese. There were plenty of chances in the game. He finished 0-0, but he could have finished 2-2. So in all the 3 games that Frosinone has played against Napoli, Atalanta, Udinese, they always created chances. It is a side that with the recent signing and loans of players like Suole, Berenche, Khedira, they got better in the last few weeks. And Di Francesco so far is doing a good job. Let's see, obviously, if it lasts. I think it all depends on their defensive solidity. Otherwise, they will always have to outscore teams. Maybe they haven't got in them. But, the likes of Gelli, Arrui, Suole, these are other names that I think you will hear more about in the course of this campaign. Over 2.5 goals. I don't think a Sassuolo game these days can finish 0-0. There could be goals. Frosinone might score 1. Maybe Sassuolo might go and win it. I like the over 2.5 goals, 194.
I see you are optimistic about the goal situation in this 4th match day in the Serie A. And when I see Fiorentina, Atalanta, I think about goals. Dani,
yes.
Especially seeing also Scamacca scoring a brace, brilliant goals. By the way,
Yes.
I watched the highlights and he's a striker that I rated when he was in Italy. His pass in West Ham was not very successful, but then scoring goals. Atalanta has a really good attacking line. 6 points so far for Fiorentina. What do you expect here? The odds are very balanced, difficult to predict a winner.
Very balanced. This one is an interesting game because it comes before European games for both teams. So let's see how they do. Fiorentina in the Conference League last year, finalist, and Atalanta back in Europe in the Europa League. I think this will be a real test to see how strong their squads are. It is an interesting one because I think they got plenty of options up front. Atalanta, you mentioned Scamacca, who didn't get a call with the national team, but if he continues this way, he will play for the Azzurri soon. And Gasperini, I'm expecting him to play Charles de Ketelaere from the start again, as he did against Monza, played well, scored de Ketelaere against Estonia in international break, and Atalanta have started the season well. Perhaps they underestimated Frosinone in their 2-1 defeat, but they have proven to be an attacking side. Third for shots, third for corners so far. Fiorentina, on the other hand, they show the old problems. They were completely outplayed by the Inter because, again, they look reckless. Too many times they leave defenders on 1-on-1 situation. They did it last season. They're doing it again. So when it's like a 3v3, as soon as one of the defenders loses the header or loses the challenge, then the opposition have got an advantage in a very difficult position, dangerous position, and Fiorentina leave themselves exposed. And when they crash against organized defense like the Inter one, then obviously problems are coming. I think what Fiorentina should have done at San Siro is what Lazio did against Napoli. Sit back the first 30 minutes, be compact, be solid, let Inter have the ball, the chances, but try to defend as much as possible, and then go for them when the game open up a little bit. They got plenty of choices. Fiorentina up front, they are second for ball possession, but sometimes all this ball possession, as we've seen last year, if there is no terminal up there, it's difficult. I mean, Zola still hasn't scored. He's ahead of Beltran, I think, because he knows Italiano better from his days at Spezia. But we'll see. We'll see what kind of formation Italiano puts on the pitch. Because as I said, there is Europe midweek, and Italiano likes to change formation quite a lot. It's an interesting one to bet. You can tackle it from many different ways. I have a feeling Atalanta can get a result here. I'm going to go for an Asian handicap 0 for the visitors in the first half, 207. Very simple. If they win the first half, you win. If they draw, if the first half is a draw, you get your money back.
Best game on Sunday in Serie A. This Fiorentina-Atalanta. The late kickoff on Sunday is Roma-Empoli, the worst two teams in Serie A. Very poor start.
Relegation 6-pointer for Mourinho.
Exactly, for Mourinho. Only 1 point at home against Salernitana. Lost to Milan, lost to Verona, but luckily for them, they are facing Empoli. Horrible start, 0.0 goals.
And finally, we might be able to see Paulo Dybala and Romelu Lukaku playing together from the start. Dybala is fit. Lukaku has played with Belgium well, scored 2 against Estonia. So finally, the great partnership that even Inter wanted last season. Now Mourinho can put it on the pitch from the start, and that's Mourinho's biggest chance to finish in the top 4 this season. It all depends on these two players, and especially on Dybala if he stays fit. Look, we said Jogili is a relegation 6-pointer. Roma had a very bad start of the season. They didn't look level with Milan, well behind it. They didn't play well, played poorly in the second half. When Lukaku came on for the last 20 minutes, did better, hold the ball better, score a goal with Spinazzola, with a deflection. They were playing against the 10 men of Milan, but initially, at the beginning, really, they couldn't put a couple of passes together. They've also been a little bit unlucky, I feel, Roma, because especially against Salernitana and Verona, they conceded 5 shots, 4 goals. So, it won't always be like this. But obviously, Mourinho needs Roma to play better football with the players he has, with the additions of Aouar. Let's see if the Ndika, who they got from the Bundesliga, will start. And this is a good opportunity for him because he plays against Empoli, who haven't yet scored a goal. And yes, this is a winnable game. Empoli, as I said many times, is a young side. They got promising players like Baldanzi, Cambiaghi, but they are a bit naive and they are not really set up and built for defending. Now they are without Vicario. I think you will see even more how much the Spurs keeper helped them in the previous 2 seasons. They haven't kept a clean sheet, Empoli, in the last 13 competitive games. Now, can they go to Roma and keep a clean sheet? I don't think so. Last year, by the way, they lost both games against Roma, 2-1 at the Castellani, 2-0 at the Olimpico. I think Roma going to win this one. You might want to go for Roma to score over 1.5 goals, maybe Dybala to score an assist. But I'm going to go for a half-time, full-time Roma. So Roma to be winning at the 35th minute and the 90 minutes, the odds, amazing, 2.20.
I like it. I like it also because perhaps the Olympico is a bit nervous, so they have to take the lead quickly in the game. And we have two more games on Monday. Salernitana Torino is the first one. Salernitana still to win a game, 2 points.
Yes.
They drew actually at the Olympico. Torino, 4 points, but also not scoring plenty, only 2 goals scored.
Torino haven't scored more than 2 goals since a year and a half. I mean, they are really stingy, but that's why perhaps they signed Duvan Zapata from Atalanta in the last day of the transfer market. They got more options up front, although Sanabria, who last year scored 12 goals, is injured. But when he comes back, let's see if Juric plays with 2 up front or sticks with 1 man. They deserve to win against Genoa, Torino in the end, because they created more chances, they show more grit, more determination, and you had the changes that Juric made in the second half with the introduction of Radonic that helped. Torino have got a bit of depth this season. They have strengthened the squad with the likes of Tamese, Bellanova, I mentioned Zapata. They still got Vlasic, Radonic, Caramo. These are all players that can have an impact while if they come on around the 60 minutes mark, because they're quick players, skillful, and I think they can create problems to Salernitana, who haven't kept a clean sheet in the last 10 Serie A games. Now, with Salernitana, is a little bit like a sliding doors with them, because they are the master of draws. They've drawn 17 games from last season into this season, but most of these games could have gone either way. They could have lost some of them because they do concede an awful lot of chances. Often Ochoa, the goalkeeper, is the man of the match. Yes, last season they scored plenty of goals, 30 goals scored domestically, same as Fiorentina and more than Roma, but they also conceded 26. So when you see it, when you look at them, you think, obviously they got talent up front, but he's a team that with Paulo Sousa plays more on the front foot. They do leave room for the opposition to score. Now, for this one, they might be without their top goal scorer of last season, Senegalese Bouladia. He's got an injury. Lassana Koulibaly, also the oldie midfielder, will be out. Torino last season away from home were really good, 31 points, more than Inter, Juventus, Milan, and Roma. And in the last trip away, they did not deserve to lose 4-1 against Milan. In Matchday 2, there were 2 dubious penalties awarded by VAR to Milan. So maybe they deserve to lose, but not 4-1. I think they're not going to lose this one in Campania. I'm going to go for a double chance X2 and over 1.5 goals. Normally, Salernitana's games have got at least over 1.5 goals. You can check all the stats, of course, on the Oddspedia website. 193.
Well, and the last game is Verona-Bologna, 2 teams with a good start. Verona, 6 points. They won the first 2 games against Empoli and Roma. For Bologna, 4 points, but also they faced tough opposition like Juve or Milan. Danny, how do you see this one? This is a difficult one, I think.
This is another difficult one. Monday night, I think they're going to be goals. They're going to be entertaining because Verona alongside Lecce, I think they are the positive surprise of Serie A season so far. They feature a very prolific striker, Silingonge, the Belgian, 7 goals in 18 matches. And this summer, they've hired Marco Baroni, the new manager, hoping that he could give them a little bit more of defensive organization, as Lecce, his former team, had last season. So far, defensively, they've not been great. They conceded 4, but if you look at expected goals, they should have conceded 5.47, and they were lucky when they kept the clean sheet against Empoli. But up front, they got options, and I like the fact that they got goal scorers. Apart from Gonge, Jordi Mbula used to play for Barcelona in the Cantera, and he looks a good player, skillful. Then you got Saponara, very experienced, Bonazzoli, Juric. So, they can change almost the front 3 in the second half, and I think that gives them plenty of chances of scoring goals. Last year, they only scored 31, so not very good numbers, but this year they look better. Bologna, on the other hand, I think they deserve to win, of course, against Cagliari because they had a good reaction from coming from behind. Let's not forget Bologna should have won in Turin against Juventus the week before because they were denied a stonewall penalty when the game was 1-0 to them. It finished 1-1. I think between the medium-sized small teams, Bologna is the one that plays the better football, and perhaps they play better football than even the likes of Roma and Juventus at the moment. And I like the signings. For example, Carson, the winger, left winger, 35 goals in 89 games for AZ Alkmaar. Played well, gave an assist already against Cagliari. Lewis Ferguson, Zirkzee, Ndoye. These are all players, young, fit, that got goals, assists in them. So I think they're going to be goals here. They're going to be chances in this game. Let's look at the numbers. Last season, Bologna conceded 35 times away, fifth worst defense. And Verona were the worst domestic defense, 32 goals conceded. I can't see a nil-nil here. I like the over 2.25 goals, 189, which means if there are only 2 goals in the game, 2-0, 1-1, 0-2, you lose half a stake. More than 2 goals, you win.
As I said, Danny likes goals in this match day. Danny, let's finish with your best bet.
And staying with goals, he has to be the Derby of Milan, the Derby della Madonnina, Inter Milan over 2 goals, 146.
And your ACCA?
The ACCA, which by the way we won in the last match day of European qualifiers, was a 371. This one is a 4.33, 4.33 the odds. Napoli win, Fiorentina Atalanta over 1.5 goals, Roma win, Salernitana Torino double chance X2, total odds 4.33.
Actually, we had a comment after your ACCA saying that someone liked your ACCA. Hopefully, this comment ages well. He said, and indeed, was a good one. Was a good one. Tell me in the comments then if you like this new ACCA for Dani, Napoli, and Roma to win, for instance, and a lot of goals in this fourth match day in Serie A. Dani Fisichella, thank you very much. Don't forget, guys, press the like and subscribe. Bye bye.
Ciao.